or some little-known relationship green flags. Story 1. Honesty. Genuine interest in each other's hobbies don't have to do them, but at least support it. Strong communication. You feel like you are hanging out with your best friend, except you want to smash. Story 2. You don't feel like they are playing games. Communication is direct, and you don't feel too nervous about what you should or shouldn't do or say, and you're not worried about what they do or don't do or say. Some butterflies is normal, of course. Edit to clarify. My point here is it's possible to meet someone who, right from the beginning, you're not overly concerned about your interactions. You don't have to think too much about what to text them, or when same with calls, they don't leave you wondering about when they will respond to you and what delaying means. They don't say or do cryptic things that you have to go home and call in a panel of friends to analyze. This is not to say that, in the beginning, you shouldn't take care to be on your better behavior, and not to overshare. This is not game playing. It's being considerate. Story 3. No matter how angry you are at one another, you will still go out of your way, or they go out of their way to help. It'll be wicked pissed, but it'll angrily make my wife her favorite dinner, even though I don't want to eat. No matter how angry we are at one another, usually only lasts a short period of time. We will never sabotage or try to teach them a lesson. Many times, it ends up being both apologizing to one another. Arguing and getting angry is just part of a relationship and unavoidable. It is how you deal with it that sets it apart from a healthy relationship versus a bad one. Edit. Thanks for the reward thingies. There's never any harm telling someone you love them. Story 4. I drink a lot of water, and sometimes I would stay until late and I would fall asleep. Before leaving, he always made sure I had a glass full of water on my nightstand in case I woke up thirsty. It's always the small details. Edit. I drink a healthy amount of water. Thank you for your concern, LOL. Story 5. When your so takes criticism from you seriously without immediately trying to turn it back on you. If the converse is also true, you two stand a great chance of going the distance. Story 6. Listening to you and remembering the things you've said. Back when me and my boyfriend started dating, had sometimes bring up things that I've said before. My favorite foods, candies, etc. made me super happy and could tell he genuinely cared. Story 7. Active listening. Not just being there while you talk, acutely giving opinions, advice if asked for, and generally caring for the conversion. Bonus. Active listening during an argument. Not trying to win, but try to resolve the problem. Edit grammar. Story 8. Being able to have healthy conflict without fear that conflict will cause the end of the relationship. It's green flag and a relief to have natural disagreements and communication about those disagreements without constant fear that someone's going to hit the nuclear option. Edit. Also, doctoring my coffee and bringing it to me in bed was a smaller green flag. Edit 2. Doctoring, meaning putting cream and sugar in. And thank you for the awards and gold Reddit friends. Story 9. Laughter. And also, I've been with my partner for 40 years this month, and I still smile when I see him across a room. He still makes me laugh, and my heart soars when I think of him. Story 10. If it's a chore you both hate, you do it together. My late husband and I both hated folding laundry, but it had to be done, so we always did it together, made the chore less of a pain. Story 11. Your partner does things for you without asking and remembers little details. For example, I like eating with a fruit fork, the smaller version of the dinner fork. I actually Googled that since our family calls them the little forks, LOL. Anyway, my partner remembers this and will grab it for me when we're dishing up food. Another good one is they make you feel appreciated. Edit. Maybe a cake fork or salad fork. Story 12. It's a pretty convoluted story, but I was dating a guy. I had to drive his car to get him from a situation and wrecked his car due to mechanical failure and called my mama to come get me so we could go get him, rescued him, then had to tell him I wrecked his car. His first question, are you okay? My mom overheard. That one's a keeper. Story 13. If she shows equal interest in hanging out with you. If it feels like you're dragging them into going on a date, they're really not into you, no matter what they may say. Besides, let's be honest, wouldn't you rather date someone who is as excited and interested in seeing you and you're in seeing them? Story 14. Came home from working a 12-hour shift one night to a full dinner with my favorite dessert. Never had a girlfriend, just decided to cook me a full meal for me to come home to like that. Story 15. Able to forgive mistakes. Early in our relationship, I accidentally backed my car into my fiance's car while coming out of the driveway. I definitely did damage. I immediately started freaking out and crying, and he just calmly got out of his car, came up to mine, and asked if I was okay. He got me to calm down and said it was fine, it was just an accident. He never made me feel bad about it. He called it our little bump to my friends to minimize my embarrassment. We laugh about it to this day. Side note, his dad, who works with cars, fixed his car for him at no cost. Edit. No, he did not have any way of knowing his dad could fix the car. His father is not a mechanic. His father knows a mechanic. His father didn't bring up fixing the car until several months later. Story 16. You want your partner to be happy and not the other way around. Oftentimes people want to be in a relationship to solely make themselves happy, yet at my point is different from making your partner happy and completely forgetting your own happiness. Story 17, genuine support in your life goals. Even if that means you two will have to go long distance for a while, or will have to have conflicting work schedule, or it will make your relationship harder in some way. If they love you and want you to be happy, they will be genuinely interested in what you want to do and will try to support you to do that in whatever way they can. They won't hold you back in any way. This is something me and my so have been facing something similar to this recently. He's just graduated and is looking for a job. As much as I want him to stay close by, so we don't have to do long distance for any more time than we have to him going home for the summer. But if he gets a job the other side of the country, I won't stop him, and as long as I'm around, I'll help him pack up. Story 18, when you're on a road trip and your partner feeds you fries and helps you drink your soda or whatever, I think that's such a nice, simple gesture of kindness. Story 19, my ex would tease me a lot and would tease me in front of his family. He would say things like, oh, she changed her outfit 3 times because she thought you guys would judge her, or she didn't really want to come over, but I convinced her. He would be laughing and joking, but these things would be the truth. When I was going to meet my current boyfriend's family, I was really nervous. In the car, I said, please don't tell them how nervous I am. It's so embarrassing. He looked at me in shock and said, I'm on your side. Why would I tell them that? And it was like a freaking light bulb. Love this guy. Story 20, not a helpful comment, but I just wanted to say reading these gave me back some faith in humanity and reminded me of all the wonderful people in my life that I'm lucky enough to have experienced these green flags with. Thanks, Reddit. Story 21, when you like the person that you become, when you're with them, everyone projects a different version of themselves around different people. And if you don't like who you become when you're with someone, it's probably not going to be the healthiest relationship. Your so should bring out the best in you. Story 22, while we were dating, my now wife would always put on a fake diamond ring whenever she would go out with her girlfriends. When I noticed it once and asked her about it, she said she would do it because it would discourage most certainly not all guys from hitting on her. It showed the type of person she was and was such a simple and easy gesture that no one I ever dated before had ever done. I obviously had to replace that fake one with a real one. Story 23, it feels easy, effortless, unforced, natural. This is a good sign of a real connection. Compromise feels like second nature. You both breath thoughtfulness and consideration toward each other. You figure things out together. You see each other, respect each other, and appreciate each other. Story 24, maybe this is just me, but when someone doesn't care too much about people's opinions of them, like when they aren't afraid to act goofy in front of people they don't know, I absolutely love people that don't take themselves too seriously. Story 25, they communicate if they will be delayed and how long they will be. Talk things through before it becomes a screaming match. Not after. Asks about boundaries, traumas, and doesn't judge you for them, but instead respects them. Story 26, if they treat waiters, waitresses respectfully. Edit, of course, this alone isn't going to determine if they're a good person. Just like any other green flag. It's simply one thing to pick up on that could be an indication. Story 27, the person makes time for you. Whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, people will always find a way to make time for those they care about. Let's say I'm super busy with my day. I can find 10 seconds to respond to your text. I have to eat a meal at some point, so even if I'm super pressed, I can invite you to have a meal with me at a restaurant, at a fast food place, at someone's home. I can call you when I'm driving in my car. It baffles me when people say I was too busy. Too busy to what? You mean you couldn't spare 10 seconds from your day to try to nourish your relationship with the other person? We all know you were on your phone while pooping. You could have texted then. Story 28, willingness to forgive you. When you make a mistake, speak in anger wreck rather than hold a grudge or try to punish you. Doesn't mean they won't still be upset, of course. Willingness to admit fault and take responsibility when they make a mistake, speak in anger wreck and work on their own negative behaviors. Related, taking you seriously when something upsets you, even if it doesn't seem like a big deal from their perspective. Not losing their temper when things don't go their way. Example, do you want to be with someone who blows up when a car breaks down on a road trip and makes everyone else miserable, or the person who calmly calls the repair service and tries to make the best of it? Not making personal attacks during arguments. Focusing more on how they are feeling and fixing the problem at hand. And then reconciling afterward, rather than lashing out with a list of perceived character flaws. Example, I feel disrespected when, rather than you're such a disrespectful expletive of choice, genuine care for you and others, a lack of self-centeredness. Being open to hear the perspectives of others, even when they don't agree, and understanding that they are not the center of the universe. They're not always right, and there's always something to learn. In short, emotional maturity. Story 29, it's the small things. The doing something just because it will make your partner smile and expecting wanting nothing in return. A few months ago, I was having a bad day and had texted my partner about the basics, and he said to head over to his place after work. I showed up so defeated by the day, opened the door, and my dog is there. He had spoken with my parents, picked up my dog from their house, because he knew that's what I needed. He was cooking dinner and told me to just go cuddle on the bed with my dog while he took care of everything else. That's when I knew he and I were in it for the long haul. Story 30, asking follow-up questions about their stories instead of just offering comparative experiences, shows they're trying to understand and learn instead of just relate. Story 31, my wife, says the biggest early test I passed was when we went to Goodwill together at the very start of everything. She was looking at some wedding dresses on the rack and asking my opinion. I told her not to bother. Our family business is basically tailoring costume shop, where all the rentals are handmade in shop by a certified Grandmaster costumer. Yes, that's a thing, and we could make whatever she wanted to her exact requirements for a fraction of the price. Later on, she told me it was a test to see if I'd run away screaming at the idea of getting married. Like, nope, there's no point to me in dating if that isn't the end goal. We got married, and she got her custom-made wedding dress for free because we already had the fabric she liked. Story 32, this is dumb, but that's something that sticks out to me. When my girlfriend and I first started to date, she remembered the game Escape from Tarkov I was obsessed with and always asked about it. I knew she was the one for me when she opened up our Bumble chat with an always sunny line. Story 33, they're happy you have your own things you're into. You're happy they have their own things they're into. There's no battle of preferences, no nasty little you are hobby, is dumb comments. Story 34, these are all great, but hey, race one, that matters more for the longer term being competent at life. I'm not saying being rich or having a fantastic job or anything. I mean someone who is able to set a goal and work toward achieving it. No matter what that is, it makes a huge difference in life. Someone who can do that is less likely to sabotage your marriage for selfish, immature reasons. Someone who can do that probably won't drag you down with credit card debt. They have impulse control, so they probably won't cheat on you or leave you for some stupid reason. That person is a keeper. Story 35. When I met my current partner, we spent 3 consecutive days together. I generally don't like anyone in my personal space for more than a few hours. I also cried when he left to go home. We were long distance at the time. That's how I knew he was the one. Story 36. When each person can find contentment without the other being present. A common red flag is the expectation that someone else can make you happy, when in reality that's something only you can do for yourself. The above is the opposite of that. Story 37, my current boyfriend isn't good at telling me he loves me. He's not good at communicating or picking up cues sometimes because of him being autistic. I've noticed, though, that there's a lot of little things he does that tell me he cares. I've made a mental list. When we watch a movie, he makes sure the blanket covers my toes and that I'm not cold and that I'm comfy. He doesn't just ignore me while the movie is going, and he's always making sure I'm comfortable and happy. When we go out and I'm pulling off a hoodie, he grabs my t-shirt and holds a hem down to make sure I don't flash everyone when it lifts. It means a lot, and it's a bit funny to me that he's always watching what I'm doing and being careful. He always makes sure to walk me home now, especially after I told him I was grabbed in broad daylight and didn't want to walk home alone at night. With previous exes, they'd have dismissed me and told me to it up, or that no way was anyone doing that to me. He listens to me when I say I'm uncomfortable and makes sure to always ask multiple times just to check. He was extremely accepting and reassuring when I told him about being molested and abused when I was younger. He's not overly possessive, and he believes in me, which means a lot. And I've had exes on both sides think badly and assume I'm cheating. He does not. He never does. He doesn't mind that my roommate is another guy and that I make semi-erotic content. He's wonderful. One of my favorite things is that he's great at communicating and working with me on little problems. He likes to listen to my perspective first and my solution, and he always trusts me and what I think. Story 38, knowing when to stop. If I say to stop something as a joke, yeah, a little IDC if you actually stop or not, but if I seriously say to stop and you stop, holy, that's amazing. 3. Story 39, it's okay to sit quietly and know nothing's wrong. It's okay to read a book on one end of the couch and the other person is doing whatever they want on the other end of the couch, and that's okay. Saying that you want something or need something is not an attack, and you both know it. Basically, being comfortable being you around your partner and being able to communicate in the event that you're not comfortable. Story 40, when a person is nice to people for no reason, friendly to waitstaff, etc., is always on time, opens the door for other people asks about you instead of constantly talking about themselves. Here's some more good-bad signs. Story 41, arguments are productive and fair. You listen to each other even when you're angry. They can still be difficult, and everyone gets too angry sometimes. But if one or both of you is constantly mad and fixating on the same issue, it's time to go to therapy or jet out of there. Story 42, thoughtful gestures. During COVID, my partner was an essential worker while I was not. He likes to game, so I'd have a blunt rolled and a fresh pot of coffee made when he got home. He picked up some Harry Potter Legos and art supplies for me to keep me entertained during quarantine. He fills up my water glass on the nightstand before he goes to work. He'll pack his lunch the night before. It's the small things that sometimes leave the biggest impressions. Story 43, you don't have to chase them down to hang out. Like my ex was severely mentally abusive and would punish me by blowing me off. This was after 4 years of dating. Not like we were fresh, and it was appropriate to not respond for days. So we finally broke up and met my now husband. He actually wanted to see me all the time. At first I thought he was a little clingy, but then I realized if you love someone, you should want to be around them. Story 40, for you know right away where you stand with them. For the longest time, every single guy I went out with always made me feel at least a little insecure about their intentions. I just chalked it up to a sort of men are from Mars, women are from Venus type thing. Guys just naturally want to play the field and women naturally want to nail them down. However, I know the story of how my parents got together and it didn't mesh with that idea at all. So I always had in the back of my head not to settle for it. When my parents met, my father was quite the player. He, of course, did not tell me this directly, but everyone else has, and he made no effort to hide it in his stories from his youth. They met at an event one night and had just one conversation. He took my now mother's number. He called her the next day to set up a date. On the first date, they set up their second date. And it went from there. There was never any question. Eventually, I met the man who would become my husband, and it was exactly the same way. I'm not saying it was love at first sight, or I knew right away he was the one. I'm just saying it was possible, and it did prove to be a good test of intentions and staying power. Story 45, ask follow-up questions to your stories. Bring you small but thoughtful gifts randomly. I appreciate the things you do for me. Thank you for calling, texting. Good morning, good night. Sleep well, sweet dreams. Have a good day at work. Text call me when you get there, when you leave. Hand holding when crossing a street or parking lot. Have you eaten? Let me know if you need anything. ECT. Story 46, when some inconvenience happens, they're more concerned about you than the impact on them. My ex would always get so frustrated if I had a bad day or something happened that impacted our time together. Family member's car breaking down and needing to pick them up, it would be guilt trips and angst. With my current boyfriend, we had a whole day planned early on. He lived an hour away, and my car broke down on the highway soon after I left. He was immediately worried about me and stressed that it was no big deal if we couldn't hang out, and offered to pick me up if I needed a ride home or to the car repair shop. It was incredibly surprising and a huge relief. Story 47, genuine happiness about your accomplishments. Truly listening and remembering things you say that are important to you. Not taking you for granted, looking into your interests or encouraging you. I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who does all of the above and more. Story 48, when that says something you can take it at face value. You don't have to try to parse the language or analyze the tone to figure out what they actually meant. Story 49, I have been together for almost 4 years now. I'd say the biggest green flag is actually willing to help me cope with my depression when it flares up instead of letting me wallow and blaming me for it. He or she's talking about the future and is planning for a future together. This means that your partner really loves you and wants to be with you. Story 50, they get along well with their family. Not everyone is lucky enough to grow up in a stable family, so the opposite isn't always a red flag, but it usually shows that they're caring, kind, and able to resolve conflicts. Story 51, each side makes an effort to do the things the other enjoys. My ex broke up amicably, would sometimes make a genuine attempt to play video games with me, even though she never gamed before. She would try and learn game mechanics, plot, and the best ways to help. I always felt like that was a huge plus. Story 52, my husband knows that I love ice water, where the ice is filled all the way to the top of the cup. So every single night since we got married 5 years ago, he had filled up a cup of ice water to place on my nightstand. Seriously, something so small, but it's absolutely the sweetest thing. He hasn't missed a day, and I appreciate it so much. Story 53, long-standing friendships. If you meet someone and they talk frequently about all of the friends they've lost moreover than the crazy ex trope, might be a good idea to steer clear. Story 54, I was in love with my best friend and didn't know it. For my birthday, he gave me a bag of mixed candy with all of my favorite pieces. It touched me deeply. He knew me so well, going on 6 years now and doing great. Get you a guy who knows your candy choices. Story 55 for me, when I met my now husband, I felt something I never felt before in my life, and I was 43 when I met him. I felt a complete sense of peace, ease, and relaxation in my body, and a sense of palpable safety. It was really hard for me to understand that was the love my body needed. It was a work romance, and I've never mixed business and personal, so it was very hard for me to continue the relationship. I had a lot of paranoia about sabotaging my career that ID worked very hard for. I was a single parent, but every time I thought about breaking up with him, I would feel like I was physically going to vomit, and every time I was with him, my body would feel so good, so calm, that it honestly felt weird, like I couldn't fully recognize it. Thank God I was smart enough to listen to what my body was telling me. I stayed in the relationship. I finally met the person for me, and I almost didn't recognize the signs because it was such an unfamiliar feeling. So my advice is listen to your body. If your stomach feels tight, if you feel like you can't talk, or if you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, red flag if your body feels relaxed. Easy, and you get to be fully who you are, major green flag. Story 56, consistency in how they treat you from the first date to current day. Dudes love to go above and beyond until they have you, and then just take it all for granted after the fact. Story 57, they do things for you just to make your day easier, and don't use their kindness as a bargaining chip later. They can talk calmly about an issue without getting defensive. It's both of you versus the problem, not one versus the other. They can talk about how they're feeling without making you a therapist all of the time. They want to grow as a person without you pushing, and they take active steps towards goals. They do things that are inconvenient if your needs outweigh their wants in that moment. Story 58, for my wife and I. It was something on our first date that just made us feel comfortable with each other. We're both introverted and don't really like sharing details, but something between us made us feel like we could spill the non-impressive details about ourselves to one another. We were completely open books with each other. And when the conversation stopped, there was never an air of awkwardness. We were on a date, but neither of us felt like we had to impress one another. We just wanted to get to know each other. Story 59, when someone is a true friend, when they remember what you like and don't like, they're not hurt when you leave early. Because you're tired, they don't criticize your life decisions, they know your boundaries, they are never late to meeting you, and don't cancel meetings for trivial reasons. And the number one reason is they called you during the quarantine. Story 60, they clean up around your place without being asked, just because it's a nice gesture. That being said, my GF refuses to hang toilet paper the right way, so it cancels out the cleaning. Story 61, letting each other have their own personal space and interests. Not every activity needs to be done together. A lot of people in new relationships seem to think that everything should be done as a couple, which you get old fast. I've been with the same man since 2005, and we have a good balance of family time and me time. Story 62, they're kind to the server at a restaurant and tip well. They clean up after themselves in public settings, i.e., hang clothes back up in retail stores, leave a decently clean table at a restaurant. Never litter in the streets. They're kind to homeless people, giving food or money without judgment. They're polite, saying please, thank you, excuse me, etc. to everyone. They're kind to animals, making sure to stop if a deer or duck or anything is crossing the street. They don't judge people when you're out in public, never saying things like, look at that fatty, that hair sucks, those clothes. They never brag about money or how they buy you things. Instead, opting to just be kind without expecting some kind of transaction for every little thing they do. They don't immediately expect from you or pressure you in any way to prove your love. They respect your parents if they meet them. They didn't vote for Donald Trump. Story 63, this may have already been mentioned in the over 2,000 comments, but the number one green flag for me is if they speak positively about their exes. It's such a breath of fresh air when I hear a date still has positive relationships with their exes and takes equal blame in the failure of their past relationships. Shows good self-awareness. Story 64, I was hanging out with my fiancé once when we were teens, and he asked me why women always had to shave their legs if men were never expected to. He was looking at my smooth legs and told me that if I liked shaving them, then that was okay, but that if it was a lot of work or too annoying to keep up with, then I didn't have to feel like he'd be less attracted to me if I skipped it sometimes. This was when we'd only been together a few months. 8 years later, and I still consider it one of the biggest green flags in our relationship. The other was when I was trying on clothes and asked him if he thought I was fat. He said a little bit. Yeah, but that's okay because fat isn't the opposite of gorgeous, and I'd be the same amount of attracted to you whether you lost weight or stayed how you're now. All I really care about is that you're healthy, and remember to feel good about yourself. He's the one. When you find one like that, don't let them go. Story 65, my husband called me at work one day. Just a normal conversation, but when I got off the phone, my coworker is just sitting there staring at me, smiling. I was like, what? She said she needed to get a man that make her smile like my husband make me smile. She said I had the biggest smile on my face when I was talking to my husband, and I didn't even realize. Story 66, they can say sorry and mean it. They can admit when they're wrong. They ask you how your day was with genuine interest. Most importantly, they don't put peanut butter in the fridge like an absolute sociopath. Story 67, when guys talk to their pets like they're having a totally normal conversation about each other's day. It's cute AF, and in general, I find these guys to be super nice guys. Story 68 and 23. Together for over 7 years. Two things that form the base for it all. One, learn to be bored together. We can all be happy Togo or in Disneyland or while on a trip, but can you be bored together? Two, realize what's easier to lose, her or the argument. Story 69, my girlfriend will hug me in her sleep, like hard. I tell her wake me up, then I fall back asleep. She never remembers doing it. She doesn't remember anything once she's out. We can have full conversations she won't remember, but then when she wakes up, she invariably will say, I had nightmares last night. It means a lot, because even if we've hit a rough patch or are arguing, she will always do it. It tells me that even subconsciously I make her feel safe. She had a rough upbringing, and she doesn't like talking about it much, but I know the fact I make her feel safe is a big thing. So I'm always real happy when she reminds me she still feels that way. She's also really introspective, so I don't bring it up because she will ruminate on it, and I don't want her to stop. I'm a very crabby morning person, but when she wakes me up doing that, even with her death grip and morning breath in my face, it's reassurance that we are getting it right, and it makes me really happy. Story 70, people change. It's a fact of life. Does your partner get excited, curious, or interested in your changes, or do they get resentful? That's going to be an absolute must for a long-term relationship. Without it, you'll be stuck where you are in life and relationship. Story 71, they don't act like it's a chore or an inconvenience to go spend time with your family or do the less fun parts of a relationship. They're happy to help when you need them. Story 72, my first serious and current boyfriend initiated a conversation very early in the relationship about consent and ground rules for us both to respect. He was uncomfortable with the idea of us going too far when we were drunk and regretting it. So he just sat down and talked about it openly with me. 1010 recommend for everyone. It made me feel so safe and set the precedent for a long and healthy relationship. Story 73, feeling validated. I spent so much time dating dudes in the past that would make me feel small, silly for having feelings, and less than them, never in overt ways, but in really subtle. You are a bad driver. See, this is why I should drive everywhere. And you just don't handle stress. Well, only recently have I learned what it's like to be with someone that is kind, understanding, supportive, and doesn't just use you as a way to make themselves feel better. Story 74, gifts just cause. Of everyone I ever dated, only one ever did this for me, which prompted me to do in return random surprises like new shirts or things you need around the house, but never get around to buying. Story 75, when a man comforts you on your period, like that is so rare. Like out of all the boys I dated, none of them comforted me when I was on except for my current. They told me it was gross, and I should just stop getting emotional so quickly. They were also more worried about not having them my physical pain. But my current hubby understands that I can't help it, and it's a natural thing that happens. Story 76, I was in a bad spot and had my then girlfriend give, not loan, me all the money she had saved up from her summer job when I got evicted, and we were in a long-distance relationship. You better believe I married that woman. Story 77, when you fight healthy relationships, do fight. If you're not fighting, you're not talking, you still respect and value each other. And work hard to make sure the other feels respected and valued. Even when you disagree, to both people, the other person is more important than being right. You don't win fights, you work on and resolve issues in ways that feel good and productive to both of you. Story 78, the most understated green flag I've encountered is ease of communication. Not just in obvious situations like in arguments, but throughout the day, on any subject, also through non-verbal signals like expressions, posture, sounds. Non-verbal communication can cause a lot of strain when your behavior meaning doesn't match your partner's expectation of that behavior meaning. Story 79, not feeling the need to have to share every bit of the relationship on social media. If you two like each other, there's no reason to have to justify it to strangers and old high school friends on Facebook. Story 80, I don't know about green flags, but the biggest red flag for a person in general is asking Reddit for relationship advice or opinions. According to the Reddit census, the average user is 14 and male, likely a neckbeard as well. These people don't have relationships. Why are you asking them? Story 81, I have a flag that's red on one side and green on the other, with only a thin line separating them. Remembering little things, green flag. They remember things you wanted to go do, or things that you want, or small details about your life, like what your first pet was, and who your childhood best friend was. Red flag. They remember every little thing you've done, and they hold it against you any chance they get. You said this 3 years ago, and I still hold it against you. You once said this was okay, you made this mistake, etc.